The quiet origins. You don't wake up one day afraid to speak. It starts slowly. A quiet reshaping of how you exist in a room. How long you hold eye contact. How much space you believe you're allowed to take. Somewhere between childhood laughter and adult restraint, you learn that silence was safer than honesty. Not because you wanted it, but because your environment demanded it. Maybe it began at the dinner table. You said something innocent, something true, and the room responded with laughter that burned instead of warmth. Or maybe it was a parent's sigh, barely audible, but enough to tell you, don't do that again. You didn't have words for shame then, but your body understood. Your nervous system made a quiet promise. Next time, stay small. And so, you adapted. You stopped raising your hand first. You measured each word before letting it leave your mouth. You learned to watch before acting. Not as rebellion, but as survival. Because in childhood, belonging always outranks expression. Psychologists call it adaptive inhibition. It sounds clinical, but it's really the story of how a child teaches their body to protect their soul. When the world feels unsafe, your brain learns to dim its own light, to hold back, to stay invisible. And what begins as a clever survival mechanism eventually becomes your second skin. Years later, people might call you introverted. They'll admire your calm, your depth, your ability to listen. They won't see the years of silence that built those skills. They won't know that what looks like serenity was once self-defense. Because silence, at first, isn't about peace. It's about control. If you stay quiet, you can't be misunderstood. If you say less, you can't be hurt. If you disappear, you can't disappoint. And so, the quiet parts of you take root. You start to mistake stillness for safety. You call it just how I am, when in truth, it's who you had to become. But beneath that calm exterior still lives the child who wanted to be heard. The one who laughed too loud once and never forgot how that moment felt. That child hasn't disappeared. They've just been waiting patiently for you to give them permission to exist again. Because your quietness was never random. It was learned, rehearsed, perfected until it became identity. And the first step to reclaiming yourself is simple. You start to notice. When did you begin to trade expression for acceptance? When did silence become your safest place? The answer won't come all at once, but it will come. And when it does, you'll realize your silence was never weakness. It was intelligence. It was protection. But it doesn't have to be permanent. You don't wake up one day afraid to speak. Content truncated for brevity in code. Full text included below. When Home Teaches Vigilance. You learned early that silence wasn't just safety, it was strategy. Every sigh, every pause before someone spoke, every subtle shift in tone your body recorded it. Long before you had language for fear, you were fluent in tension. Maybe your father's footsteps changed when he was angry. Maybe your mother's smile thinned when she was disappointed. You became an emotional detective, scanning the air for danger that others couldn't see. You learned to predict moods the way some people predict the weather, by reading clouds no one else noticed. That wasn't shyness. That was vigilance. Your nervous system became your radar. Always on, always searching for the next emotional storm. This is what psychologists call hypervigilance, a byproduct of unpredictable love. When the people who were supposed to make you feel safe were also the source of unease, your brain adapted. It started connecting comfort with control, safety with silence. Because if you could anticipate the next explosion, maybe you could avoid it. So, you quieted yourself even more. You softened your footsteps, lowered your voice, tried to become invisible between the walls of your own home. You learned to sense tension before it spoke. You developed empathy, not as a gift, but as a shield. And it worked for a while. But hypervigilance is exhausting. It burns through your energy in ways rest can't fix. As an adult, you might notice it in small moments. The way your body tenses when someone's tone changes. How your mind replays conversations hours after they're over, searching for what you might have said wrong. You call it overthinking, but it's really your nervous system trying to protect you from the ghosts of unpredictability. That's why solitude feels like oxygen. It's not that you dislike people. It's that your body finally relaxes when no one's around. You don't have to read anyone's face. You don't have to anticipate anyone's mood. You can just exist, unobserved. And yet, part of you wonders why you crave that quiet so deeply. Why social gatherings feel like battles you didn't sign up for. The truth is, it's not social anxiety, it's survival memory. You're not afraid of people. You're afraid of unpredictability. Because unpredictability, in your world, used to mean pain. The child who learned to walk on eggshells became the adult who seeks peace in solitude. The one who reads between the lines in every conversation. The one who apologizes for existing too loudly. But here's the paradox. What once kept you safe now keeps you isolated. Your vigilance, once a brilliant adaptation, became your prison guard. And if you listen closely, you might hear that same old whisper, be careful. Don't say too much. It's okay to thank it for keeping you alive when you didn't know how. But you don't need it anymore. You're not in that house now. You don't have to read the room to survive it. Sometimes healing starts when you stop scanning for danger and start scanning for peace instead. The sensitive child. You were probably the kind of child who noticed everything. The flicker of irritation in someone's eyes. The way voices changed when certain topics came up. The sound of sadness hiding inside laughter. You felt deeply, sometimes too deeply for the world you lived in. But sensitivity, in many homes, is mistaken for weakness. Maybe you were told, stop being dramatic. Maybe you heard, you're too sensitive. It's not that big of a deal. Every time someone said it, they didn't just dismiss a feeling. They rewired your trust in your own perception. So you learned to second-guess your emotions, to audit every reaction before showing it. You became careful not only with others, but with yourself. Because every expression carried risk of ridicule, rejection, or misunderstanding. And when you can't trust that your feelings are valid, you start to bury them. You tuck them under politeness, under smiles that don't quite reach your eyes. The emotions don't disappear, they just sink deeper, waiting for safer soil. Then one day, as an adult, someone raises their voice, not even in anger, just intensity, and your body reacts before your mind understands. You shut down. You freeze. You withdraw. It's not conscious. It's a learned reflex. The same reflex that once kept you from being scolded, now keeps you from being seen. That's how emotional conditioning works. It's subtle, invisible, and relentless. You weren't born guarded. You were trained to be. And the irony is, the people who trained you probably weren't cruel. They were repeating what was done to them. Parents who were never allowed to cry teach their children to swallow tears. Parents who were taught to equate strength with silence past that silence down like an heirloom. Generational quietness. The inheritance nobody asked for. But here's the truth you deserve to know. Sensitivity was never your flaw. It was your compass. It told you when something wasn't right long before your logic could. It was your early form of intelligence, emotional radar, finely tuned to the energy around you. The tragedy is that the world rewarded your numbness more than your honesty. Adults praised you for being mature, calm, easy. They didn't realize those were just other names for shut down. Now, as you grow, the work isn't about becoming tougher. It's about remembering that your sensitivity isn't a weakness to outgrow, but a language to relearn. The goal isn't to stop feeling, it's to feel safely. Because when you finally stop apologizing for your sensitivity, you begin to understand that empathy isn't fragility, it's strength refined by awareness. The same heart that once absorbed everyone else's pain can now recognize its own. And that recognition is where healing begins. Blueprints of attachment. Every childhood writes a hidden map of how you'll love later in life. Not through words, but through moments. The way your parents looked at you when you failed. The silence that followed your mistakes. The warmth that arrived only when you behaved well. These moments formed what psychologists call attachment templates, unconscious blueprints for how you expect love to feel. If love once felt unpredictable, you learn to brace for its absence. If affection came and went without warning, you learn that connection comes with risk. That warmth could vanish the moment you need it most. And so, as an adult, you begin to confuse peace with distance. You tell yourself you're just independent, but often, independence is simply the polite word we use for fear dependency. You keep a calm exterior because chaos once lived behind closed doors. You seem grounded, unshakable, but that stillness was built in response to inconsistency. When love was unstable, you learned to make stability alone. It's not that you don't want closeness, you crave it. But somewhere inside, Your nervous system still remembers that intimacy once hurt. So you hold people at arm's length. You let them see your depth, but not your vulnerability. You share your thoughts, but not your needs. You convince yourself you're low maintenance, when in truth, you're just terrified of being too much. And people notice. They tell you, "You're such a good listener. You're so calm." They mean it as praise. They don't realize those traits were sculpted by silence, refined in rooms where speaking up felt dangerous. You became the observer because it was safer than being the participant. That's the paradox of it all. Your empathy, your awareness, your depth, they were born from pain. You see through people not because you're gifted, but because you had to. Still, those same qualities can heal you if you learn to redirect them inward. The same attunement you use to read others can be used to read yourself, to sense when your walls go up, when fear disguises itself as calm. Healing begins when you stop calling your defenses personality, because underneath the quiet independence lies a child who still wants to be held without earning it. A child who wants to be chosen without performance. And here's the truth. You don't have to be easy to love to be worthy of love. You never did. It's time to stop mistaking composure for peace. Sometimes calm isn't confidence, it's conditioning. And the moment you recognize that difference, something powerful shifts. You stop surviving love and start learning how to receive it. Social fatigue and emotional calibration. There's a reason you feel drained after socializing, even when the people are kind. It's not that you dislike company. It's that your mind never truly leaves work mode. You're constantly scanning, adjusting, decoding. You notice every flicker of discomfort, every shift in tone, every pause that lingers too long. To most people, a conversation is an exchange. To you, it's data. You've spent years mastering the subtle art of emotional calibration, reading others so well that you can adapt before they even realize what they need. It's not manipulation. It's protection. A skill you learned in childhood when peace depended on prediction. You learned to become whoever the moment required just to keep things smooth. But that kind of awareness comes at a cost. Every social interaction becomes a performance you didn't audition for. You analyze your words after they're spoken. You replay laughter to see if it sounded forced. You sense disappointment that was never even there. And when the conversation finally ends, you're left exhausted, not because you dislike people, but because your nervous system has been working overtime. That's why solitude feels like medicine. In quiet moments, your body finally stops translating the emotional static around you. You can breathe without analyzing. You can exist without performing. For once, you don't have to measure how much of yourself is acceptable. You've probably noticed it too, your preference for depth over small talk. You crave conversations that feel real, not because you're pretentious, but because surface-level exchanges remind you of the emotional emptiness you once lived with. You want authenticity because you grew up surrounded by its absence. This is what most people misunderstand about introverts. You're not antisocial. You're overexposed. You spent a lifetime tuned into frequencies others don't even hear. You're sensitive to emotional dishonesty because you've seen what happens when truth is silenced. And yet, this gift, the same one that made you careful, can also make you lonely. You connect deeply, but rarely. You wait for people to earn your openness. You hold back until you feel safe enough to release the flood of empathy you've been carrying. The danger is that solitude, once healing, can become habit. A comfort zone so peaceful it keeps you from being known. You tell yourself you're just recharging, but sometimes you're also retreating. Not from people, but from the unpredictable emotions they awaken. Still, there's something beautiful beneath that fatigue. The reason you feel so much is because you care so much. The reason you retreat is because you long for something genuine. And one day, you'll meet someone whose presence feels quiet enough for your nervous system to rest inside it. You'll realize that connection doesn't have to cost you peace. It can be the place where peace finally begins. Love, perfectionism, and conditional worth. You learned early that love could be lost. Not through words, but through temperature. The way affection cooled after mistakes. The way approval returned only when you performed well, behaved well, achieved enough. Love wasn't something you received, it was something you earned. And when love is conditional, perfection becomes survival. You started striving, not for joy, but for safety. You tried to be flawless so you wouldn't be corrected. Quiet so you wouldn't be scolded. Useful so you wouldn't be forgotten. Each time you succeeded, the world felt stable again, if only for a moment. That pattern became muscle memory. As an adult, you still carry it. You overthink messages before sending them. You edit yourself mid-sentence. You delay sharing ideas until they feel airtight. Somewhere in your body, the child still believes, if I make a mistake, I'll lose love. This is how perfectionism hides inside personality. It wears the mask of diligence, composure, reliability, but underneath, it's fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of not being enough to keep love around. And when you live that way long enough, you start mistaking silence for peace. You tell yourself, I'm calm, when really you're just careful. You confuse avoidance with maturity. But stillness built on fear isn't peace, it's paralysis. Psychologists call this a protective adaptation, a form of self-numbing that once shielded you from chaos. But now, it keeps you from connection. Because perfection may keep you safe, but also keeps you lonely. People can't love the parts of you you never show them. The truth is, authenticity doesn't bloom in perfection. It grows in permission, the permission to be messy, uncertain, human. You don't heal by becoming louder or braver overnight. You heal in small acts of defiance, saying what you really think, even if your voice shakes. Letting someone see you unpolished. Allowing silence to exist without rushing to fill it. Every time you do, your body learns a new lesson. I could be imperfect and still be loved. That's how you rewire the old story. Not through self-help slogans, but through lived experience. Through gentle rebellion against your own conditioning. And slowly, the perfectionism begins to soften. You realize you don't need to earn peace. It's not a prize. It's a right. You start to see that your worth isn't in your composure. It's in your existence. The child who once performed for love can finally rest. Because the adult has learned that love isn't a transaction. It's a home you build inside yourself. When that realization lands, the need to be flawless dissolves. And what remains isn't emptiness. It's honesty, inheritance, and compassion. At some point, you start to see the pattern. The way silence runs through your family like a second language. The way your parents spoke without words, through sighs, glances, withdrawn warmth. You begin to realize they weren't villains. They were messengers. Carriers of unhealed stories passed down through generations. Your mother, who told you not to cry, once learned that tears only brought punishment. Your father, who never said, "I'm proud of you," was likely never told those words himself. You were raised by people who mistook control for care, because that's how they survived. And so the wound repeated, not out of malice, but out of inheritance. We call this intergenerational transmission. It sounds academic, but it's heartbreakingly human. Each generation quietly teaching the next how to manage love, fear, and shame. And you, without realizing, became fluent in their emotional dialect, restraint. But here's where everything begins to change. When you stop translating their silence as rejection and start reading it as pain. When you begin to see that their inability to nurture was not your unworthiness, but their incapacity. Healing doesn't start with blame. It starts with compassion. Because the moment you understand their limitations, something softens inside you. You stop waiting for the apology that may never come. You stop chasing closure in people who never learned how to give it. You begin to reclaim emotional agency to give yourself what they couldn't. And part of that reclamation means learning a new emotional language. Saying things you were never taught to say. I'm allowed to feel. I'm allowed to speak. I'm allowed to exist without fixing everything. Every time you speak those truths, you interrupt the old script. You stop the echo that's been repeating for decades. You start noticing that your quietness, the same one that once made you feel small, also gave you rare gifts, patience, perception, empathy. You know how to listen because you once longed to be heard. You know how to comfort because you once needed comfort. But empathy has two directions. It can reach outward or turn inward. For years, you used it to read everyone else. Now, it's time to use it on yourself. Because compassion isn't just understanding others. It's also refusing to keep punishing yourself for what they couldn't give you. You're not broken for being quiet. You're the first in your lineage to notice the silence and question it. The first to say, "This ends with me." And that's how generational healing begins. Not through confrontation, but through awareness. Not by shouting, but by choosing differently. You can love them and still outgrow their patterns. You can forgive them without excusing them. And you can finally speak, not to correct the past, but to free the future. Reclamation and freedom. There comes a moment when you realize you've spent most of your life backstage, watching, studying, understanding everyone else's story, but rarely stepping into your own. You know every cue, every emotional rhythm. You've mastered when to enter, when to stay silent, when to exit gracefully. But somewhere along the way, you forgot that the story doesn't move unless you walk into the light. That hesitation you call introversion was once survival. But now, it's become habit. You wait for invitations that never come, for people to notice what you've never shown. You long to be understood, but rarely risk being seen. And yet, something inside you keeps whispering, it's time. Because healing isn't about becoming louder, it's about becoming truer. It's remembering that your voice doesn't have to fill a room to matter. It just has to be yours. So you begin small. You speak even when your voice trembles. You share a thought before you edit it. You let silence exist without using it as armor. These are simple acts, but they're revolutionary. Each one tells your body, expression is safe now. And with each act, your nervous system starts to rewrite itself. This is neuroplasticity in motion, the brain's quiet miracle. The same wiring that once associated exposure with danger can now associate it with connection. The same reflex that once silenced you can learn to let you breathe. You start to see the difference between peace and numbness, between solitude and isolation. Solitude now feels spacious, not suffocating. Silence becomes a choice, not a cage. You can sit in quiet without disappearing. And when you meet people now, you no longer monitor their every tone. You notice, yes, but you don't overinterpret. You're learning that not every sigh signals rejection. Not every pause means judgment. The world begins to feel less like a minefield and more like a landscape you can move through freely. You realize, too, that the same sensitivity that once made you retreat is also what allows you to see others so clearly. To feel life in finer detail. That was never a flaw. It was consciousness evolving under pressure. So now, you turn that awareness outward. You use it to build, not walls, but bridges. You listen, you speak, you create. You express not to prove, but to connect. And one day, it will hit you quietly. Your introversion was never an accident. It was a form of wisdom forged in the dark. You've simply outgrown the fear that once guarded it. You don't need to erase your quietness. You just need to inhabit it differently. To make it a space of presence, not absence. Because true freedom isn't noise. It's choice. The choice to speak or stay silent without fear. The choice to love without shrinking. The choice to rest without guilt. And when you find that balance, when you can be both gentle and strong, reflective yet visible, your quiet becomes power. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that transforms a room simply by being there. What part of your adult self is quietly asking to be seen?